Average Aussie savings and the earnings gap. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your shine of coffee because we're going to have a look at a Yahoo Finance article and discuss some of the frank propaganda that's in this. So, how much the average Aussie your age has in savings? So how much do they have in savings? Now, if we go through this and you're saying, oh, I'm far behind, I'm not at that, don't feel bad. Don't compare yourself to other people. But if you've made the decision to take control of your finances and start to build up your emergency fund and to get out of debt, that's what is important. That's what you should focus on. And it should be encouraging to you every little bit. You'll be surprised if you've never actually got into the habit of saving or paying off debt quicker. It starts to snowball. That's why I'm a big fan of the snowball technique, where you pay off one debt, the littlest one, just to get that psychological benefit. The problem is it can become quite addicting and you can become a bit of a nutcase, but, you know, better that than other things. So let's have a look at this. Because it seems to be counter to some of the arguments that are being put forward. Of anything, this is showing the class divide, really, even more so. So the average Australian has 28,426 in savings, but that varies greatly depending on age and gender according to the latest figures. Now, there's a lot of Australians, I think a fifth, who can't even scrape together $1,000. So you've got to keep that in mind. Australians aged 56 to 74 have the most money sitting in their savings, with an average of 40,000 to their name. Finder data revealed. At the other end of the spectrum, Australians aged 8 to 23 have the smallest sums at 10,568. I mean, these are just averages, so it's going to be all over the place. So by age, between 56 and 74, if you've got more than 40 grand, you're beating the average, guys, in savings. I'm assuming this is just savings, just cash on hand, not net worth. I'm hoping it is. I really am hoping it is. 40 to 55 if you're over 34,000. 24 to 39. Yes, I'm still in this. I'm not in this group yet. I'm still young, you bastards who keep saying I'm old. I'm still young. I'm in that group for, oh boy, for only a couple of months. Let's see me, watch me have a turning 40 midlife crisis on YouTube, everyone. Oh, honestly, I think it was hardest for me was hitting 25. That was hardest. Now I don't really, you know, I'm playing it up a bit, especially with the wife to annoy her. But at 25, because I was doing architecture. Architecture was like 2 degrees. It took forever. All my friends had finished their university. They were earning good money, and I was still there studying, doing bloody architecture at uni and earning crap money. And oh, yeah, 25 was hard. A lot harder than 40. So there you go, guys. If you know, every 5 years gets harder. Anyway, maybe it's all out the window. I'll have a midlife crisis. What'll I have as a midlife crisis? You know, I'll do the house extension. So, anyway. So, if you're over 22,000. If you're aged under 24, if you got 10 grand. Okay, so you need to get each of your kids at least 10 grand. So, I mean, there you go. There you go. The people have savings. I'm hoping this is cash and this excludes super and all of those things. Let's just assume that is what it is. And it probably doesn't count all your stacks of bullion or silver or crypto, guys. Okay, so average savings by gender. And this is where this starts to get a bit funny, this article. While Australian men aged 56 to 74 have 48,000, Australian women in the same age group have a significantly smaller sum of savings of just 30,000. And that major gap is reflected in all age groups, with women aged 8 to 23 saving 7,554 to 16,349. Well, my daughter has the most amount of savings, because what I try to do is I try to encourage the kids to save pocket money or gifts or anything they get, and then we flip it to silver or precious metals for them, because rather than putting it in the bank, rather than buying shares, it's so as a child they can have something physical in their hands and have something, you know. Try and explain the concept of inflation to a kid is a little difficult. So this is probably the best attempt that we're going to do it. How do you teach your kids about savings, everyone? That will be interesting to see in the comments, how people do it. Because you want something haptic. You want the sensory experience of touching it and picking it up and weighing it. And you say, okay, see that jar you have with your little silver coins in it. See how that feels heavier? That's more important than just a bag of fake coins. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see. Maybe I'm turning them all into libertarian stackers, and they'll come to regret it watching this years later. But still. But damn, I don't have them at $7,000. They gotta do more chores. Maybe I'm not paying them enough. Don't tell them. So let's have a look at men. So if we're between 56 and 74, we've got to have 48 grand. Between 40 and 55, 41,000. Between 24 and 39, 26, and 24 and under 16,000. And then women are less. They're 30,000, 26, 18, and 7.5. Now, this is where this article starts going on about the gender pay gap. The gender pay gap. Now, it doesn't exist. Or if it does, it's illegal. They make no mention, at least I haven't seen it in this article, of the anti-discrimination laws that we have in place. You cannot pay someone differently for the same job purely based on their sex, if they're male or female. You can't do it. Sure, it happens in certain industries because there's different demand, but those are quite unique and niche industries. But you can't do it. I can't hire a female architect and a male architect, or probably a student, graduate, and I can't pay them less because of their gender. What happens is, and this is from our own experience, some people earn more because they work harder. See, it's an earnings gap. And I would put an argument to you here. I mean, once you're married and all your money goes in the one bucket, all of this doesn't mean anything anyway. Even if you're in a de facto relationship, it doesn't mean anything anyway, because everyone gets cut down the middle. So, it is politics. These pieces are politics in many ways. But one, argument I put for this comes back down to evolution and sexual market value. How in order to attract a mate, it's a lot of effort for a man. You need to be able to provide material resources. You need to prove that you can be a provider, and that in that many ways, that's money, earning capacity, having the nice car. For women, it's a little different. And I know there are going to be some people that are offended by a dose of reality here, but that's how life is. For them, it's their fertility. And their sexual market value peaks a lot younger than men. There's a kind of a crossover. We peak a bit later, women peak a bit younger. And that's why this isn't as a priority. We've seen it in our own business. We've hired people regardless of race or gender or anything. We've hired a lot of people, and it was their first ever professional job. Because, I'm going to story time. Because in architecture, at QUT, we studied one day at university, and we were working 4 days. And that was kind of the culture that was built up at that university. We got exemption from one subject a term or a semester, whatever it's called, because we were making up that equivalent learning in the office. And that was fantastic, because at 4 days in an office, you could run a job. You could get a lot of experience. You could be thrown in the deep end. And we were. But it was good for you. You didn't come out of university without an understanding of what the profession really was. Often there's a reason why you see so many architecture couples, because you don't actually go out and meet anyone other than in your profession. I mean, Rachel and I, we met in the computer labs. So we hired a lot of students back when we had staff, and we wouldn't care about their gender. It's more to do with the attitude, really. And I mean, the first staff member I hired was a student. One thing I would do is I would tutor at the universities, and I realized quite quick that was a great way to get the good staff with the right attitude. You wanted people with the right attitude. You didn't want sometimes you don't want the superstars. You don't want that. You want the right attitude and the right cultural fit. So we were, we'd working, and we'd gone through a few waves of people. One of the issues we would have is that we'd train people up. They'd get good, and then they'd get poached. We're a brand new firm. We're not doing such beautiful work. And we're doing mining work and those type of things, which was really good for people to just learn some fundamentals, learn some skills. And, you can make decent money in it. And we'd get them poached. So every couple of years, every 3 years, we'd have a kind of like a refresh. We'd have to, bring people through the firm. And there's one point where work got quiet. We had a few people, one person got poached for double his pay at another firm. And we just said, we're going to start again. We'll build up a new team from scratch. So we really scaled back. And we brought one young guy on, and he joined on. And, he was a bit surprised that he was the only one there, but he was working away. And then we needed another one. So we got another young lady working on. And so they were both students. So one was from UQ on their year out, and the other one was a QUT working 4 days a week. In some architecture schools, what they do is you do a full-time degree, then you take 1 year off and work, and then you go back to university. At QUT, what we used to do, it was flexible full-time. So from year one, you were working 4 days in an office and 1 day at university. That meant your university day was like from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. It was a big day. But it means you could work all the way through. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to both approaches. The one where you're full-time at university, you can completely focus on university. The other time when you're work sometimes would take a priority over your university education, and you'll be more interested on a real project than on a fanciful idea of a lecturer who might have less experience working than you have. I'm just saying. So there were pluses and minuses. So we had these two young people working there. And often what would happen is we would like to get the young people, we'd like to give them opportunities. So we'd have a new project coming up, or, there'd be, okay, I've been on the phone. Guys, such and such called, they need this thing done by tomorrow. Now, I'm going to work through the night to do it because it's our client and they're feeding us a lot of work. Who can help me? We'll pay for it, and you'll get, we'll buy dinner. Rachel will cook a steak. It's even one thing we did then, steak dinner for the staff if they're working back. That's a number one rule, guys. That was before I was even carnivore back then. We were eating so much garbage. See? Just inherently the value of steak. So in those situations, who do you think would be the person that would put up their hand to do the extra work? Or if we say, okay, we've got a project here, we want someone to take responsibility of it, because it'd be Rachel and I would be managing the jobs, and then we'd have one of the juniors to be under us, and we'd want them to take responsibility for the project. Who do you think would put their hand up to take responsibility? Every single time it was a bloke. Rachel got to the point where she had to pull she went and had a coffee with the girl saying, you're going to be left behind. You're not stepping up. You're not taking advantage of these opportunities. She wasn't interested. Left every day. Boom. 5:30 on the dot. And I know some people in boring jobs may think that's normal, but when you're working in a professional, creative job and a project, sometimes you don't, if you're in the middle of something, you're designing something, you're solving a problem, and it's all coming together, you just push in. You just go, okay, I've got this solved. No, you go home, I'm going to figure this out. It's different, guys. There's a bit of give and take there in a professional relationship there. You're not treating someone just as a little, wage slave doing a menial task. You're hiring someone for their intellectual capacity. And some of that is their creative talent. And you want to make sure that they've got the room to use that and to learn from their mistakes. And you don't want to have the mistakes cost you money. So that's kind of the environment that we were in, that we worked. And we saw it in that environment where every single time it was all, and this wasn't just this one time. That was just the one time where Rachel had enough, because it happened right from day one, where she'd pull the girls aside and say, you're going to get left behind. You're going to get left behind. You're not going to be earning as much. He's going to earn a bonus because of all of the effort that he's put in at the end of the year. We'll pay him extra. That'll, a couple of grand, boom. Big bonus, or even, $500 makes a difference. That's why. It's initiative. It's an earnings gap. It is not a pay gap. I'm tired of seeing this. Another story. Rachel was at a sewing guild. She goes to she did. I hope she doesn't watch this, because then she'll saying, I need to go sewing again. Well, kind of a group of sewers that meet together at a venue and they just sew together. I guess it's the female equivalent of a LAN party. When you bring all your computers together. I did that once, actually, as a professional thing. I sat at the office with a LAN party and had a whole bunch of people coming. I should do that again. But anyway, and there was one woman there who was working at a university, and I think Rachel was the only one with a slightly more conservative slant in that group. I mean, they sow like little propaganda things for Sea Shepherd, so that can give you an understanding of this group there. And this one lecturer was saying, oh, you know, she was publicly admitting to giving preference to females, to girls at the university, give them higher marks because, you know, oh, everything's going to be against them, they're going to get paid less. She believed this gender pay gap rubbish. It's not true. And Rachel piped up and said, well, no. In my own business, we've hired people of both genders, and I've seen this, and this, where it's to do with effort. It's not to do with discrimination. Because if you could discriminate on one gender against the other for wages, what do you think's going to happen? Okay? It's a competitive market, everyone. I'm competing with businesses that'll offshore all the work overseas to countries where they don't have any of the red tape and rigmarole as we have here. People will go for the cheapest option. Sometimes going overseas, they have to learn the hard way that it's not worth it, but still. See, it's ludicrous. And the problem is, this is the type of crap that Labour is putting forward, that they believe. And probably people who are only ever employees or politicians believe this garbage because they've never run a business. They may never have managed someone in a non-controlled environment. Some of these big corporations, you know, it's ludicrous. And how many people have never actually negotiated their pay or never gone up to a boss saying, you know, I've worked really hard, I deserve a bonus? I've had that happen to me. It works out really well when they ask for it and you said, yep, this is what we had lined up for you. That works out well. That's a nice feeling, everyone. So there's I'm seeing it in the comments, and I'm seeing, you know, people around that I think may not have actually ever received act of kindness from an employer, or they just believe the propaganda. It could be that you're in an environment where it's impossible for those that excel to achieve, where it's probably a controlled environment, a unionized environment. Maybe the only way they're allowed to reward you is people with seniority. So you're not in an environment where effort necessitates a reward, so you've never experienced it. That's the other side of the coin, everyone. That's where, oh no, you know, we need to have all these rules in place because they're evil employers. But okay, then you give that, then people won't get rewarded for their effort. And what happens if that just grows and grows and grows onto a country level? Well, we've seen they fail. So let's have a look at this, okay? The gender, and I'm going to say earnings gap because it's not a pay gap. Because my daughter is earning more, Mina is earning more than Frederick, because she's older, she can do more chores, but sometimes she won't do them and Frederick will step up. You know, and they're competing. They're competing who can earn more money. So, financial expert. How can you be an expert? How can you be an expert and believe in something that's not real? That's proven not to be real. Are they going to make any mention that the claims that there's a pay gap purely based on gender is against the law? Are they going to even mention that in this? And I know there's one woman that always comments, and I remember she just an IT expert who earns more than her ex-husband, and who was screwed over. And I'm just seeing from the comments and going, wow, you were probably terrible. Your attitude probably sucked. That's probably why. You know, I think you need to look into yourself sometimes. If every time you go somewhere, you're always, you know, being held down or not getting ahead, the problem may be you, guys. Takes time to realize it. We've all been there. No one's perfect. You know, once you realize that, once you realize everyone's a bastard, life's a lot easier. You know, once you realize you're a bastard, life's a lot easier. So, financial expert and founder of Financy Women's Index. Come on. Bianca. Oh, hyphenated name. Sorry. Said the gap isn't surprising, even the higher earnings of Australian men. According to the Australian government's Workplace Gender Equality Agency. See, this is a government agency that is using our tax dollars. You don't just, it's like, it's a bunch of rent seekers. It's like the potato board in WA. It's a group that needs to come and try to manage the market when it's not necessary. The base salary gender earnings gap is 15.5% or 15,000 per annum. And that earnings gap can start as women's first job. Okay, this is because women gravitate towards jobs which pay less as well. My brother-in-law, he works on the mines. There's women there that are doing really well, earning good money. They're earning more money than the woman who's working at a Target who's about to lose their job because it's getting shut down. What do you think requires a different level of intellect and work ethic? That's life, everyone, okay? Sorry, commies, we're not all equal. We have different abilities. There's going to be some inequality in a free society. You just have to deal with that. Once you accept that, the reasons for your failings will become much clearer. What the huge disparity in those 8 to 23 could reflect is the fact that men are likely to start working sooner than women, who are more likely to undertake formal studies. Well, yeah, no, that could be true. More and more women are going to university now, more than men, and they're going to complain that they can't find a partner with a university degree that isn't their equal. And you have to question, some degrees you need. You need if you're entering a profession where it is your passport into that profession. You're simply jumping through the hoops. For me to call myself an architect, I have to abide by the Architects Act. I've got my 2 degrees there. I'm done my interviews, my registration exams, all of these things. I need to do CPD. You know. So that's the only way. Well, there is another way to get into the profession, but it's much harder with years and years of experience. But this is the most traditional way to get into the profession. Whereas a lot of other degrees, well, do you even need them? It depends. You need to value, you know, being a doctor, being a lawyer, a high engineering degree, sure, you know, but how many arts graduates do we know that wind up just doing clerical work? You know, how many people have Bachelor of Arts in Ancient History and are working as a receptionist at a museum? So, we see this in trades and apprenticeships, with more men doing the job work and training than women. By contrast, women are more likely to study beyond high school and seek out degrees, which can restrict the amounts of earnings a woman can earn until she graduates. Women represent 58.4% of students in higher education. Well, there's an education enrollment gap there, isn't that? Don't we need to have complete 50-50? You know. Once students graduate, men's undergraduating starting salaries are higher than women in 16 out of 20 fields of study. Dentistry, 23.5%. Architecture and built environment, 12%. Well, there you go. I gave you an example. An example of why, in my own experience, my own lived experience, why the blokes were getting paid more than the Sheilas in architecture and built environment. Right there. You know, they were both, you know, junior architects, or, you know, sorry, architectural assistants. That was their technical term. But the guys got more pay because they worked harder. It's that simple, everyone. Okay? That could be why. Agricultural and environmental studies, pharmacy, law and paralegal services had the largest differences in starting salaries. So let's have a look here. Architecture. Female, 54,000. Wow, that's... How out of date is this? 2019. Oh, well, Rachel was earning more than that while she was a graduate years ago. Guys, that's the problem with our profession. Architecture is just... It's terrible for earning. People think you're rich when you're an architect. Nah, not at all. The competition is so... We're so flooded. So flooded. And, yeah, the money just ain't there. Ain't there. People won't pay for it. Wow. Men, 62,000. I have to ask Rachel. She was over that when she came out. But see, this is the difference. This was QT. And this is a while ago, too. We're talking 10 years ago now. But, I mean, that shows you the difference. When we were working, while we were studying, we came out much more useful. So you could demand a much higher pay. So dentistry, 78 to 102,000. And we can see all of them here. So, I mean, I would hazard a guess that the majority of this is to do with work, with the amount of time people work. And remember, these are average figures. So it could be the location that you're working. How many male dentists do you think will go rural to get the experience and earn more money than Sheila's? What do you reckon? Bloody oath, I think that'll happen. I remember we had dentists from the family that were going overseas. One went to South Africa just to pull teeth. You don't pull teeth as much over here. You do, that's pretty much all dental care is in South Africa. So the gender earnings gap. See, how can they not realize that? It's not a pay gap. It's an earnings gap. Do people not realize this, guys? To me, this seems completely normal. Now, is it because of my experience? Often I'll think things are common knowledge when I slowly start to realize they're not. I assumed opportunity cost was common knowledge, and then people would see, why are we cheering all these stupid policies? They're obviously not going to make any impact in the long run. Then I start to learn, well, no, most people don't even understand the concept of opportunity cost. People are talking about who are the better economic managers, Labour or Liberal. And I'm going, it's a highly complex emergent system. Even, you've got people on the fringes of economics pretending that they can manage it, but there can be so many unknown factors that can throw everything out of question. Any even attempt to manage it is a bit fanciful. Don't people know the concept of emergence? They probably don't either. So is this normal? Let me know in the comments, guys. Do you know people? Do people believe this garbage? That there's legitimately women are getting paid less. There's like men going, oh, I'll pay her less. Yeah, come on. So maybe the boomer generation. You meet a boomer woman who's talking about, oh, we need to help the women get up in the industry. I saw that in architecture, actually. One of the lecturers at QT, she started up this women in construction thing. And I go, what? So you got an award from this women in construction thing because you happen to be a woman working in construction? What is it, the Vagina Awards? She didn't hire me again after that. But still, come on. It's a bloody joke. To anyone under 40 or even under 50, this type of stuff is garbage. Seriously. If you're going to think that's going to make a difference, come on. It's to do with effort. Maybe a lot of these people just don't know effort. Finder Savings and Super Editor, so not editor, Super Editor, Alison Banney, agreed that the earnings gap is one of the biggest contributors to the ultimate savings gap. Yeah, but if you're normal, you get married, and all your money goes into one bucket anyway, so it doesn't matter, everyone. It does not matter. You're a team. That's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a team. You work together, and you build a life together. That's traditional. Has that gone out the window? I thought that was normal. I mean, is this, again, my bias coming through here? I mean, come on. This is turning into a long video. She noted that women are more likely to be employed in nursing, social work, and childcare. Professions such as these are notoriously underpaid compared to male-dominated industries like construction, mining, and transport. I wonder why. Because changing a nappy is not the same as welding or working on a bloody mine, you stupid idiot. Maybe this is why. Come on. Serious. How can you compare childcare to working on a mine? You can't. Okay? Childcare isn't that hard. Shock, horror, gasp. It's not that hard. You're not going to catch on fire. You're not risking death. On top of this, women are also more likely to work part-time, to juggle family commitments, or take years out of the workforce to start a family. Yeah, that's called being normal. And if traditionally you do that in a normal family... Okay, now, here we go. Here we go, leftists. There's these things called gender roles that still are hard-coded to us, where women tend to want a man that can provide for the family so they can focus on raising the kids. Now, if you can pull it off, if you can manage to get by with one person working in a job so someone can spend the time taking care of the kids full-time, fantastic. And don't think taking care of the kids full-time is not a job. It's work. It may not be like working on a bloody mine like they're equating to, but it's work. That's a privilege now. Being able to do that is a privilege. The number of people that I know, particularly in the homeschooling community, where they are just living very poor. They just have to cut their expenses down significantly to get to that point. Because, well, it's a privilege these days, guys. What used to be expected in the past is now a privilege. All of these factors can have a detrimental impact on how much women can save or add to their superannuation. Yeah, but the blokes die earlier. How many blokes work, retire, drop off the bucket, and the wife gets it? That's part of life, everyone. You don't want to be the last one to die. You don't have to clean up the mess. So tips for closing the savings gap. Let's see here. Let's see. Well, what is it? A savings gap or an earnings gap? Make up your mind. Banny noted Finder research showed women are less inclined to negotiate their salary than men. It is critical women negotiate their salary from their first job so their earnings can grow from a strong starting point. And when it's time for a salary review, she suggested women can become prepared with a list of their major achievements and what others in similar roles are paid elsewhere. Additionally, she said superannuation is a great way to increase savings, as is using a high interest savings account. Do those even exist? You can do this by increasing your ongoing salary contributions or adding the occasional lump sum. Yeah, okay, so no actual discussion of the fact that systematic underpayment based on gender is technically illegal in this country, and this is a myth that's being put forward for ideological purposes. And the fact that we have government departments pissing tax dollars away on this is a joke. It's a complete waste. These are a bunch of rent-seeker peoples that are adding no value at all to our economy. If anything, they're going to, here's the counter argument to all this garbage. You're going to have people less inclined to hire women who could potentially be troublemakers. I bet you that'll be. You see someone going, you check out their Facebook. Oh, look, a whole lot of ideologically driven pay gap garbage. You give them a job. Oh, look, they're not working very hard. Why is he paid more? Well, because you haven't done one extra thing all year. Rick. Anyway, guys, what do you think? What do you reckon? Do you think we're ever going to get away from this garbage? Will the normal people actually get an understanding of what it's like to work? Anyway, like, share, subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I cobble together, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. Support us using our affiliate links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.